The details we never saw before Hogwarts. The Philosopher's Stone movie is one of the most faithful Harry Potter adaptations. But even here, the book contains details the movie completely skips. Let's start with Harry's life at the Dursleys. First, Mrs. Fig. In the book, Harry doesn't just live with the Dursleys and occasionally get treated badly. We learn that whenever the Dursleys take Dudley out for his birthday, Harry is normally left at Mrs. Fig's house. And Harry absolutely hates it there. Her entire house smells of cabbage, and she makes Harry sit through photographs of all the cats she's ever owned: Tibbles, Snowy, Mr. Paws and Tufty. But in Harry's 11th year, Mrs. Fig breaks her leg, so she can't look after him. And that's actually why Harry ends up going to the zoo with the Dursleys for the first time. And there's another person missing from this entire sequence: Piers Polkiss. In the book, Dudley doesn't go to the zoo alone. His friend Piers comes with them. Piers is described as a thin boy with a rat-like face, and he's usually the one who holds people's arms behind their backs while Dudley beats them up. At the zoo, Harry is basically ignored while Dudley and Piers get expensive treats. Harry gets a cheap lemon ice lolly. Then, in the reptile house, Harry notices the boa constrictor. The movie shows Harry discovering that he can talk to the snake, but the book gives us another detail. Harry and the snake actually have a short conversation. Harry learns that the snake was bred in captivity but originally came from Brazil. And when the glass disappears, the snake thanks Harry and tells him it's going to Brazil. There's also a small detail immediately afterward that the movie leaves out. When Dudley and Piers tell Vernon what happened, they make the encounter sound much more dramatic than it really was. Vernon then locks Harry in the cupboard and takes away his meals for a week. So even before Harry receives his Hogwarts letter, the book gives us several little pieces of his life that the movie simply moves past: Mrs. Fig and her cabbage-smelling house, Piers Polkiss, Harry's cheap ice lolly, his conversation with the Brazilian snake, and his punishment after the glass disappears. And there's an even bigger set of details missing from the next part of Harry's life: Diagon Alley and the journey to Hogwarts. After Hagrid takes Harry into the wizarding world, there are several details in the book that the movie either changes or skips completely. First, Harry actually meets Draco Malfoy before Hogwarts. In the book, Harry is at Madame Malkin's buying his Hogwarts robes when another boy starts talking to him. That boy is Draco. Draco immediately starts talking about Hogwarts, Quidditch, and how he thinks certain students shouldn't be allowed to attend. He also makes it clear that he believes Muggle-borns shouldn't be admitted to Hogwarts. Harry doesn't like him and refuses Draco's offer of friendship. The movie moves this entire first meeting to Hogwarts, so their first conversation in the robe shop never happens. There's also more to Harry's shopping trip. In the book, Harry and Hagrid spend more time going through Harry's school supplies. Harry gets his cauldron, books, robes and other equipment, and Hagrid explains more about what he'll need at Hogwarts. Even Harry's wand scene is longer. Ollivander measures Harry before trying different wands, and Harry goes through several wands before finding the one that chooses him. The movie keeps the important moment, but skips much of that process. And there's a small timeline detail that the movie makes easy to miss. Harry's birthday is on July 31st, but Hogwarts doesn't start until September. In the book, Harry actually goes back to the Dursleys after his shopping trip and spends the rest of the summer there. The movie makes it feel like Harry goes from the Dursleys to Diagon Alley and then almost immediately to Hogwarts. Then comes King's Cross. In the book, Harry doesn't simply run into Ron on the platform. Fred and George meet Harry first, help him load his trunk onto the train, and then tell their family that they've found the famous Harry Potter. Ron already knows who Harry is when he enters the compartment. That's different from the movie, where Ron introduces himself without already knowing that he's sitting with Harry Potter. And Neville's first interaction with Harry and Ron is also slightly different. In the book, Neville comes into their compartment looking for Trevor, his missing toad. He comes back again later, this time with Hermione. The movie combines this into Hermione arriving by herself and asking about the missing toad. And there's one more important change involving the Philosopher's Stone. In the book, Harry first discovers the name Nicholas Flamel from the back of Dumbledore's chocolate frog card. In the movie, Hermione discovers the name while reading a book. So even the way the trio begins investigating Flamel is different. And then Harry finally arrives at Hogwarts. But even his very first night there contains scenes the movie left out. The sorting ceremony and Harry's first days at Hogwarts. Harry finally arrives at Hogwarts, but even his first night at the castle is different in the book. Before the sorting begins, the first years meet Peeves, Hogwarts poltergeist. And Peeves isn't just a background character. He constantly causes trouble for students and especially for Filch. But the movie removes him completely. He was actually filmed for the movie, but his scenes were cut from the final version. Then comes the sorting ceremony. In the book, the sorting hat sings a song before sorting the students. The song explains the history of the 4 Hogwarts founders and the qualities each house values. The movie completely removes the song. The book also shows many more students being sorted. The sorting happens alphabetically, rather than jumping between only the important characters as the movie does. And there's another small difference. In the book, the student puts the sorting hat on their own head. McGonagall doesn't place it on him as she does in the movie. After everyone has been sorted, Dumbledore gives a short and rather strange speech before dinner. He suddenly says a few random words, including nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak, and then tells everyone to enjoy their feast. The movie replaces this with Dumbledore's more practical start-of-term announcements. Then there's Harry's first night in Gryffindor. The book introduces us to several students who barely get any attention in the movie, including Seamus Finnegan and Dean Thomas, and gives us more of the everyday atmosphere inside the common room. We also get more of Neville's background. He tells Harry that his grandmother raised him and that his family had doubted for years whether he was actually magical. Then Harry starts his classes. And this is where the movie cuts a lot of material. The book actually shows Harry attending multiple lessons, including potions, charms, transfiguration and defense against the dark arts. One particularly important example is Harry's first potions lesson with Snape. Snape immediately starts questioning Harry about potion ingredients and magical knowledge. Harry doesn't know the answers. Hermione knows them, and keeps raising her hand. Snape ignores her and continues questioning Harry. The scene is important because it establishes Harry's suspicion of Snape from their very first lesson and shows Hermione's academic personality much more clearly. The movie includes the classroom scene, but cuts some of the questioning and dialogue. There's also a detail involving Harry's broom that happens differently. In the book, Harry receives his Nimbus 2000 before his first Quidditch training session and before the troll incident. The movie delays the broom until later. And finally, there's something the movie completely removes from Hogwarts: Peeves. He isn't mentioned even once throughout the films, despite being a recurring character in the books. He throws things at students, annoys Filch, makes up insulting names and causes chaos throughout the castle. And later in the book, when the students are trying to deal with the threat of the Philosopher's Stone, Peeves becomes part of the story again. So while the movie gives us the beautiful Hogwarts we remember, the book gives Hogwarts another personality entirely, one that's constantly being disrupted by a poltergeist who seems to enjoy making everyone's life miserable. The Midnight Duel, Fluffy and the First Clues. After Harry's first weeks at Hogwarts, the book gives us several scenes that the movie either changes or removes completely. The first is the Midnight Duel. In the book, Draco challenges Harry to a wizard's duel after hearing Harry brag about being a great wizard. But Draco isn't actually planning to duel him. He tells Filch about the meeting and intends to get Harry caught breaking the rules. Harry, Ron and Hermione end up sneaking around the castle at night because of the challenge. Neville also gets involved because Harry tries to leave him behind, but Neville follows them. And that's how the 4 of them accidentally end up in the Forbidden Corridor. The movie cuts the entire Midnight Duel storyline. Instead, Harry, Ron and Hermione simply end up in the corridor while trying to escape Filch and Mrs. Norris. And this changes how they first meet Fluffy. In the book, Neville is actually with them when they discover the enormous 3-headed dog guarding the trapdoor. The 3-headed dog is Fluffy, and the book makes it clear that something extremely valuable must be hidden beneath him. After this, Harry, Ron and Hermione become obsessed with finding out what Fluffy is guarding. And eventually they discover the name Nicholas Flamel. But here's another difference. In the book, Harry discovers Flamel's name on the back of a chocolate frog card belonging to Dumbledore. The card reminds Harry that Dumbledore is famous for his work with Nicholas Flamel. The movie instead has Hermione find the information in a book. Then there's a Quidditch match the movie completely removes. Harry plays against Hufflepuff, with Snape acting as referee. After Gryffindor wins, Harry notices a hooded figure heading toward the Forbidden Forest. He follows the person and eventually sees Snape and Quirrell talking. Harry becomes convinced that Snape is trying to steal the Philosopher's Stone. The movie removes this entire Quidditch match and changes the way Harry overhears Snape and Quirrell. And because the match is gone, another little scene disappears with it. Ron and Neville get into a fight with Draco, Crabbe and Goyle in the stands. There's also an important detail about Harry's father. In the book, when McGonagall tells Harry that he's been chosen as Gryffindor's seeker, she tells him that James Potter had also been an excellent Quidditch player. The movie instead has Harry see his father's name on a Quidditch trophy. So the book gives Harry something more personal. McGonagall is directly telling him that his father was good at the same thing. And all these changes affect the mystery surrounding the Philosopher's Stone. In the book, Harry's suspicion of Snape develops through several separate events: the Quidditch match, the conversation with Quirrell, the midnight exploration and the things Harry keeps noticing. The movie compresses much of this into a much simpler mystery, and the next major book-only sequence makes the mystery even more interesting: Harry's repeated visits to the Mirror of Erist. Christmas, the invisibility cloak and the Mirror of Erist. Christmas at Hogwarts is another place where the movie quietly leaves out some great book details. In the book, Harry doesn't just receive the invisibility cloak. He gets several Christmas presents. The Weasleys send him a sweater. Hermione gives him a large pack of chocolate frogs. Hagrid gives him a wooden flute. And even Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia give him a small amount of money. The movie only focuses on the invisibility cloak, and the cloak itself is introduced slightly differently. In the book, Harry first puts it on before reading the message that came with it. The message tells him that the cloak belonged to his father and that James left it with Dumbledore before he died. Then Harry starts using it to explore Hogwarts at night. During one of those nighttime explorations, he discovers the Mirror of Erist. And what Harry sees in the mirror is slightly different from the movie. In the book, Harry doesn't just see James and Lily. He sees his entire family standing behind them, including his grandparents. Harry becomes obsessed with the mirror and returns to it repeatedly. Eventually Dumbledore catches him, and Dumbledore gives Harry one of the most important explanations about the mirror. The mirror shows a person's deepest, most desperate desire. But there's another detail the movie leaves out. Dumbledore tells Harry what he sees when he looks into the mirror. He says he sees himself holding a pair of thick woolen socks. It's a funny answer, but it also fits Dumbledore's warning that people can become trapped by what the mirror shows them. There's also a completely missing character during these Hogwarts scenes: Madame Pince, the Hogwarts librarian. She appears in the book when Harry is trying to research the Philosopher's Stone and later sneaks into the restricted section. The films remove her entirely. And there's one more scene that gives us a glimpse of the Weasley twins' sense of humor. Fred and George enchant snowballs to follow Quirrell around and repeatedly hit him in the back of the head. And one of those snowballs even hits Voldemort, who is attached to the back of Quirrell's head. The movie completely leaves this out. So the book's Christmas section isn't just about Harry receiving a magical cloak. It's where we get more of Harry's connection to his parents, Dumbledore's explanation of desire, the first major mystery surrounding the stone, and even a glimpse of Fred and George tormenting Quirrell without knowing who they're actually hitting. And while Harry is becoming obsessed with finding out what the stone is, the book gives him another Quidditch match that the movie completely removes. The Quidditch match and the Nicholas Flamel mystery. There's one important Quidditch match that the movie completely removes. In the book, Gryffindor plays Hufflepuff, and Snape is the referee. Harry is convinced Snape is trying to sabotage him, But something much more important happens after Gryffindor wins. While Harry is putting away his broom, he sees a hooded figure heading toward the Forbidden Forest. Harry follows them on his broom and discovers Snape and Quirrell arguing in the forest. He can't hear everything, but he becomes even more convinced that Snape is trying to get the Philosopher's Stone. The movie removes this entire match and moves the Snape-Quirrell encounter to a corridor at Hogwarts. And because the match was removed, another scene disappeared with it. Ron and Neville actually get into a fight with Draco, Crabbe and Goyle in the stands. That's completely absent from the movie. There's also an important change in how Harry, Ron and Hermione discover Nicholas Flamel. In the book, Harry finds the name on the back of Dumbledore's chocolate frog card. The card mentions Dumbledore's famous work with Nicholas Flamel. The movie instead has Hermione find the information in a book. And even the information they discover about Flamel is slightly different. The book tells us that Flamel and his wife Perenelle are living quietly in Devon, and that Flamel is the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone. The movie leaves out Perenelle completely. There's also a tiny but interesting difference in the name. In the book, it's spelled Nicholas Flamel. The movie spells it Nicholas. So the movie keeps the mystery of the stone, but the book gives us a much more connected chain of events. The Quidditch match right-pointing arrow Harry follows the hooded figure right-pointing arrow Snape and Quirrell's argument right-pointing arrow Harry's suspicion of Snape right-pointing arrow the discovery of Nicholas Flamel. And there's another character whose entire role has been missing from our story so far, Peeves. But before we get back to him, there's something much bigger the movie removes from Harry's first year, the entire Norbert storyline. Norbert the Dragon and the missing detention story. One of the biggest complete scenes missing from the Philosopher's Stone movie is what happens to Norbert after Hagrid's dragon starts growing. In the book, Norbert doesn't simply disappear after Hagrid hatches him. The dragon becomes a genuine problem. Norbert keeps growing, becomes increasingly difficult to control, and even bites Ron, leaving him with a badly injured hand. Eventually, Harry, Ron and Hermione realize that Norbert has to be taken away. Ron contacts his brother Charlie, who studies dragons in Romania. Charlie agrees to arrange for some friends to collect Norbert. But there's a problem. They have to get a fully grown dragon out of Hagrid's hut without anyone noticing. The plan is to take Norbert up to the astronomy tower at night. Charlie's friends will meet them there and take the dragon away. Harry and Hermione carry Norbert up the tower while wearing the invisibility cloak. And this is where the book's detention storyline happens. Harry and Hermione successfully hand Norbert over, but they make one mistake. They leave the invisibility cloak behind in the astronomy tower. On their way back down, Argus Filch catches them. They are out of bed after curfew, so they receive detention. And this completely changes who goes into the Forbidden Forest. In the book, Ron isn't with them. He is still in the hospital wing recovering from Norbert's bite. Instead, Neville receives detention because he was also caught out of bed while trying to warn Harry about Draco. So the book's group going into the Forbidden Forest is Harry, Hermione, Neville and Draco. The movie changes the entire sequence. Norbert is simply taken away by Dumbledore, and Harry, Ron and Hermione receive detention after Draco catches them outside Hagrid's hut. So one deleted dragon scene actually changes an entire later chapter. In the book, Norbert's removal is what directly leads to Harry and Hermione being caught at the astronomy tower, which then leads to their detention and Neville joining them in the Forbidden Forest. That's why this isn't just a small deleted scene. The movie removes one event and then has to rewrite everything that happens because of it. The Forbidden Forest. The Forbidden Forest sequence is much more detailed in the book than what we see in the movie. First, the group is different. The group is different. Ron is still in the hospital wing because of Norbert's bite. So the four students serving detention are Harry, Hermione, Neville and Draco. Hagrid divides them into two groups. Harry initially goes with Hagrid, while Neville goes with Draco. But Draco deliberately frightens Neville, and Hagrid eventually swaps Harry and Neville between the groups. The movie replaces Neville with Ron because the entire Norbert storyline was removed. Then they enter the forest. In the book, they encounter three centaurs. Ronan and Bane are discussing the strange movement of the planets, particularly the unusually bright appearance of Mars. And they are clearly worried that something is wrong. The movie removes both Ronan and Bane, leaving Firenze as the only centaur we see. Then Harry and Draco are sent in different directions. Harry eventually finds a dead unicorn. And this is where the book gives us a particularly important detail. Harry sees a hooded figure drinking the unicorn's His scar begins hurting violently, and he's so frightened that he can barely move. Firenze arrives and saves him. But in the book, Firenze doesn't simply carry Harry away. Harry actually rides on Firenze's back, takes him back toward Hagrid and the others. During this conversation, Firenze explains why unicorn blood is so valuable. It can keep someone alive even when they are close to death. But there's a terrible price. Someone who kills a unicorn and drinks its blood is cursed to live a cursed life. Firenze then tells Harry exactly what the hooded figure was drinking it to keep himself alive. And Harry finally realizes that the figure in the forest is Voldemort. The movie keeps the basic revelation, removes the longer conversation with Firenze and the ride back to Hagrid. There's also another small but important difference. In the book, Hermione doesn't casually say after leaving the forest. She still calls him. The movie has her say Voldemort's name, even though this becomes inconsistent with her behavior in later films. So the Forbidden Forest isn't just a shortened adventure. The book uses it to reveal why Voldemort is drinking unicorn blood, what it costs him, and how Firenze becomes the first person to directly what the hooded figure is actually trying to accomplish. The challenges the movie left out. Ron and Hermione finally go through the trapdoor to reach the Philosopher's Stone. The movie shows most of the obstacles, but it actually removes two entire challenges. The first is another mountain troll. After the devil's snare, the trio enters a room where a mountain troll is guarding the next stage. But they don't have to fight it. Quirrell has already been there and knocked the troll unconscious. This is an important clue because it shows that someone has already passed before Harry and the others arrive. The second missing challenge is much more important. Snape's potions puzzle. Ron and Hermione enter a room containing 7 bottles and a riddle. The bottles contain different potions, but they don't know which one is safe. One potion allows them to move forward through the black flames. Another allows them to go back through the purple flames. And several of the others are dangerous. Hermione studies the riddle and works out the answer using She realizes that Harry has to take the potion that will let him pass through the black flames. But there's a catch. There isn't enough of the correct potion for both Harry and Hermione. So Hermione stays behind. Harry has to continue alone. This is completely removed from the movie. And because the potions puzzle is removed, Hermione never gets this final moment where her intelligence is what allows Harry to continue toward Voldemort. The movie instead has Hermione stay with Ron after the chess game. There's also a difference in the flying keys challenge. In the book, Ron and Hermione each grab a broomstick and chase the keys. The movie gives Harry the only broom and makes the sequence entirely his. So the book's final sequence gives all 3 members of the trio a specific Hermione solves the logic puzzle. Ron sacrifices himself in the chess game. Harry catches the key and continues toward the stone. The movie keeps Ron's chess moment and Harry's completely removes Hermione's final contribution. And that takes Harry to the last room, where he discovers who has actually been trying to steal the stone. Quirrell. The stone, and what the movie changed. Harry finally reaches the last room and discovers that Professor Quirrell is trying to get the Philosopher's Stone. But the book's confrontation is different in several important ways. Quirrell explains that Snape had actually been trying to protect Harry all year. And there's a detail the movie leaves out. Tells Harry that Snape had hated Harry's father when they were students at Hogwarts. That gives Harry another reason to understand why Snape seemed to hate him. Then comes the Mirror of Eris. In the book, Quirrell turns around so that Voldemort's face is directly visible to Harry. The movie changes this. Harry sees Voldemort's reflection in the mirror instead. Voldemort then tries to persuade Harry to give him the stone. The movie adds a line that never happens in the book. Voldemort tells Harry that his parents could be brought back if Harry gives him the stone. In the book, Voldemort instead tells Harry that Lily didn't have to die and suggests that Harry should give him the stone rather than allow her sacrifice to have been pointless. Harry refuses. Quirrell attacks him. And here's another major difference. In the book, Harry doesn't simply grab Quirrell's face and watch him turn to dust. Harry's touch causes Quirrell's skin to blister and burn wherever Harry touches him. Quirrell eventually collapses. Harry is knocked unconscious and doesn't actually see Quirrell die. In the movie, Harry watches Quirrell's body crumble away in front of him. And there's another important difference. In the book, Voldemort is the one who kills Quirrell by abandoning Quirrell to die. Leaving Quirrell to die. The movie makes Harry's physical contact appear to be what destroys Quirrell. Harry then wakes up in the hospital wing. Dumbledore explains what happened and tells him that the Philosopher's Stone has been destroyed. But the ending still has several book details the movie changes. Especially how Gryffindor actually wins the House Cup and what Neville's final moment means. And that's where the story ends. Ending the movie changed. Harry wakes up in the hospital wing after the confrontation with Quirrell. In the book, Dumbledore stays with Harry and answers his questions about what happened. Harry learns that Voldemort escaped after Quirrell's death. Dumbledore explains that the Philosopher's Stone has been destroyed by Nicholas Flamel and his wife. There's also an important detail about Harry's parents. Dumbledore explains that Lily's sacrifice created the protection that saved Harry when Voldemort attacked him as a baby. But the biggest difference comes at the House Cup ceremony. In the movie, Dumbledore suddenly awards Neville 10 points, and then awards Harry, Ron and Hermione 50 points each for their actions. The book does something slightly different. Dumbledore first gives Neville 10 points for standing up to his friends. Then he gives Ron 50 points for the best game of chess Hogwarts has seen in many years. He gives Hermione 50 points for using her logic when the trio faced danger. And finally, Harry receives 60 points, not 50. For his courage in facing Voldemort. Those points are enough to push Gryffindor from last place to first place. And this is important because Neville's moment isn't just there to make Gryffindor win. Neville is rewarded for doing something that required real courage, standing up to his own friends. The book also gives us a much more detailed celebration after Gryffindor wins. The students cheer. The Great Hall transforms into a sea of Gryffindor colours, and the Slytherins are furious. Then comes the final journey home. Harry says goodbye to Ron and Hermione and returns to the Dursleys for the summer. But the book ends with one final detail that the movie changes. Harry tells the Dursleys that he isn't allowed to use magic outside Hogwarts, and then quietly reminds Dudley that he has a spell that could turn his teacup into a rat. Dudley immediately becomes frightened. Harry laughs, and then he leaves for the summer. That's the end of the first book. And although Philosopher's Stone is one of the most faithful movies in the series, we still found a surprising number of details that never made it onto the screen. From Mrs. Fig and Piers at the zoo, to Norbert's journey to Romania, the Midnight Duel, the missing Quidditch match, the potions puzzle, and Neville's final point. The book gives Harry's first year a lot more detail than the movie could fit. And that's exactly why the later books become even more interesting. Because if Philosopher's Stone, the most faithful adaptation, left out this much, imagine how much the movies left out of the books that came after it.